It's Only Sport with Martin Devlin on the platform. Brought to you by One New Zealand. Let's get connected.
But from Supersport South Africa, Andy Capostagno. Well, no complaints about that at all. We will talk about a couple of contentious refereeing decisions and the penalty count and so forth. But overall, we just couldn't stay awake. And in the end, the last 20 minutes were pretty poor from the All Blacks.
Yeah, but I think Razor will look back on this ultimately and say, okay, good Springbok side. We lost by 4. Not the end of the world. Good chances for a comeback at Newlands next week because it's sea level and it's probably going to be horrible, raining and cold, which your guys will thrive in those conditions.
All right, break it down for us, mate. I mean, where was it won? Where was it lost in your mind?
Oh, well, before the game, one thing stood out to me, and that was the what you've already mentioned, the power of the bench. When the bomb squad came on, sort of 5 of them at once in the second half, it's become a thing with Rassie now. He knows the effect that has on opposition teams. He did it during the World Cup. And it's just human nature for people to just hang their heads. They've just thought that they've seen off the likes of Ox and Che, and now on come 5 more guys as big and as good as the ones that are departing. So that's really... I think you can probably put down to the fact that the All Blacks had a poor final quarter was that they couldn't match the bomb squad, and I think that was fairly clear up front. But what I should say is that the other thing I thought before the game was that the Springbok tight 5 would boss the All Blacks in the first half. That didn't happen, and probably fair to say that the opposite was true. So well done. There's lots to work with there. And actually, my abiding memory of the game is not of the forward play. It's TJ Perenara's hair.
Well, we've got used to this. See, this is what happens when you don't see Super Rugby, you see. So we've all got used
That's
to that.
right.
Yeah. As far as the bomb squad goes, 4 tries to 1 after 60 minutes to the All Blacks. And, I wrote down this is as bad a beating as the Boks have ever had. I thought that at that stage we were playing pretty damn well. But, got penalised heavy in the last quarter of an hour especially. Lost our discipline and our kicking was just so poor. So, you talk about room for improvement. I mean, there's obvious improvement in the All Blacks. How do the Springboks get better?
Well, one of the things that stuck out when I watched it live, and then today I watched it back again, was the number of knock-ons that the Springboks were guilty of in really good attacking positions, and that affected the overall content of the game. Other areas, well, they certainly need to work on their line-out because again, they had a few poached, and the shenanigans around the number of locks that were off injured and Etzebeth only returning to the squad late in the week didn't help matters. But I think that will be a cause for concern. But generally speaking, if you were a dispassionate viewer of that game, perhaps somebody from the Northern Hemisphere, you'd be thinking to yourselves, I don't think we can match that.
Are these the 2 best teams in the world still after watching that?
I don't think that that people in France would agree with you, but I would say, generally speaking, I wouldn't have expected France to put up the fight at Ellis Park that the All Blacks did. And traditionally, teams come to Ellis Park, they can compete for an hour, and then they get run over in the final quarter. And you spoke about us not seeing Super Rugby. Perhaps one of the effects of that is that you're not getting your Super Rugby franchises playing at altitude on regular basis anymore, and perhaps that explains that little bit of a drop-off in the final quarter.
Andy, let's go back to Mbomonambi's try, which wasn't a try, clearly wasn't a try. And I'm not saying that cost the All Blacks the game. It's 5 points. The scoreline was 4 points. You can do the math if you want. But what's more important is that the TMO was able to interject himself into the game and get one of your guys yellow carded for being in the wrong position to make a tackle in the first half. He's also able to whisper to the referee at various other times. Yet it's so clear and so obvious on the first replay that you see, and no one's able to pick that up. This is that's the frustration with rugby at the moment. It just seems so stupid that nobody can actually press pause and go, hang on a second, that's clearly a knock on.
Well, watching the game back, I want to name and shame him. We shouldn't do this with officials because we need officials. But Brian MacNeice of Ireland was the TMO, and he had an absolute Joe Cocker of a game. Because you mentioned Mbonambi's try. Well, Cody Taylor's try wasn't a try. It was double banking in the line out, and they sheared off around to the right. And you'll see, if you watch the replay, you'll see the Springbok captain, Siya Kolisi, going to the referee and clapping his hands together and saying double banking. And it's clear as daylight. The yellow card you mentioned against Fassi, an absolute shocker. General play, I really don't know where they came with that decision. But they also missed Sam Cane breaking Siya Kolisi's cheekbone in a shoulder to the face. And again, on replay, all of these things were obvious. So I'd like to start a campaign to say, let's get rid of the TMO because it's just ridiculous.
Devlin.
Oh my goodness me!
The platform.
Chris Jones, Times Online, rugbypass.com. Your thoughts? Let's look at the All Blacks versus South Africa first. Okay, so we can all see where it went wrong, which is the last 20 minutes, that penalty count and the inability of the All Blacks to deal with the South African bench. Is that a fair summation?
Absolutely. I mean, it's going to be a stick that the All Blacks are going to be beaten with about this last 20-minute fact. But you can't get away from it. You're not scoring points, at the business end of a match. And you can say, well, it's because they're bringing on, the bomb squad. And yes, they made a massive impact, much more so than the All Black bench, which is not a huge shock, is it? Because just look at the experience coming on at that key moment. World Cup winners coming off the bench, guys who can change a game. And that's just not in the current armory of the All Blacks. So you've got to have the game either really well won by then, or you have to hope that your fitness comes through. And at the moment, neither is happening. And it is a worrying factor, particularly for opponents who know that you ain't going to score in the last 20 minutes, which is madness for an All Black side.
Well, it's a very alarming statistic that Scott Robertson sort of shrugged and shook his head at the press conference afterwards that, I didn't know that. Well, I mean, of course you know that because you're the coach. I mean, we've only played 6 tests this year. You'd have to know that and 4 of them that we can't seem to get up in the last quarter. Is equally concerning, though, has got to be the poor kicking and exit strategies. And you talked about this versus both England and Argentina, where both teams figured us out. And for some reason, we just, I don't know what it is. Don't we not have our kicking boots on? Maybe we complicate it too much. Maybe we just don't have just 1 or 2 simple ways of getting back up their end territory. But we just got dominated in that last 15.
Yeah, and you expect, what I can't come to terms with is Scott Barrett coming on the TV afterwards and saying, we were good for 62 minutes, but it's an 80-minute game. Yes, it is, which means that every aspect of your game has to last 80 minutes. And that includes the ability to kick yourself out of trouble and not give away stupid penalties and get down to 14 men. I mean, these are key decisions being made by guys who play professional rugby. And okay, yeah, you're going to do anything you want to help your team. But even Ardy not getting back and coming through the gate and giving away a penalty, it's like, really? Could you not actually, just spend 1 more second just getting yourself in the right body position? And as far as the kicking is concerned, this is a game where you need McKenzie to really step up and show that he is the player that we hope he can become for the All Blacks. And I think that the jury's still out on this because he allowed himself to be usurped by a guy with far fewer international caps, and who also is just trying to start off in his career in terms of convincing everybody that rather than Pollard or Libby, they should be picking him every test. So Montgomery Zulu did really well in terms of looking after that team. But then he had the most fantastic partnership outside him. That centre partnership was great all game, whether it be over the ball, whether it's just getting in your face. Yes, they got the blitz wrong a couple of times, and boy, did you expose it. And that's why I can't this Jekyll and Hyde performance, because at times you were so clinical in exposing the overcommitment of the back, created space out wide. Caleb finished brilliantly. But then, the Mr. Hyde, was fine. Mr. Jekyll at the end there, I mean, where was he for the last 20 minutes? He went missing. And quite honestly, I know you could have got confused because it seemed that everybody, including some of the crowd, was coming on to play for South Africa at one stage.
It's Only Sport with Martin Devlin on the platform. Brought to you by One New Zealand. Let's get connected.